Thank you.
Yes, hello.
Hi, you're on. You can go on and introduce yourself
now.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about children and AI. I'll just spend 10 minutes talking to you a little bit about some of the work that we've done, but a very quick introduction. I co-direct the Young and Resilient Research Centre at Western Sydney University in Australia. And we're a university that, we're a research institute that is looking at how to enable children and young people to maximise the benefits of digital technology for their resilience and their well-being. And we've been very fortunate to partner on at least one project with Jennifer, because we do these large international qualitative studies where we work with child-facing organisations in different countries, primarily in the Global South, as you can see from this map, to really dive deep and understand how children are using technology and what the issues are that they are facing and how we might solve some of those issues to make their experiences better. So we've now worked with over 6,000 children in 79 countries with the very generous support of over 130 organisations internationally. So I'll just make some brief comments around children and AI, and I would start just by saying what is probably quite obvious to you, and that is that algorithms are not new in children's lives. Children have been interacting with algorithms for a very long time, and this is true whether they are connecting to the internet via a computer or via a mobile phone, a gaming console, or some other kind of device. Algorithms have been shaping the ways that we engage with digital technology for as long as there's been computing. So, but I think what we've seen is a kind of a step up in the ways that algorithms are shaping how we interact with technology. And of course there is currently quite a lot of conversation, curiosity, and a lot of concern about the ways that generative AI might be shaping everyone's interactions with technology. But there's a particular concern around children. And this is because children are often seen as very vulnerable, perhaps not having the skills, not having developed, and they're much more clever than we often give them credit for. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerned about generative AI, but I think as we think about how to address the influence of generative AI in children's lives, we need to remember that children are not passive. They're not only vulnerable, there are many other things as well. Okay, so what are the ways that children are thinking about algorithms? This is from a recent study we did in 9 countries around how children and young people are thinking about creating and consuming digital content. And of course, this is the primary way in which children come across algorithms is indeed in their content consumption, right? The platforms that they use to consume video, photographic, and audio material. And I think what we've learned from children in these 9 countries is that children are mostly aware that some kind of system of recommendations drives the digital content that they encounter. They're aware that algorithms are working on their technology. This doesn't mean that they always would know the word algorithm. Obviously, it's an English word, but not that children necessarily call them algorithms, but they understand that there is a system behind what they see on their screen that is to them. Is everything okay? Can you hear me all right? And what's very interesting about the ways that children are interfacing with algorithms is that they think about it as a partnership. So often adults think about algorithms, and we have a bit of an adversarial relationship to algorithms. We know that they're important and necessary, but we don't really like them. We often get irritated with them. Children think much more about the algorithm in a partnership model. They see themselves working in partnership with the algorithm to curate the content that they come across. And there's a very interesting kind of protective capability in this, because it's a symbiotic relationship for children. So they are looking after the algorithm so that the algorithm in turn looks after them. So in fact, there's a very protective capability in this, because as children are scrolling and looking at what's coming across their screen, they're constantly thinking about, is this good for me or is this not good for me? They're constantly asking them that question of, what is the impact going to be if I watch this on my well-being? But they're also conscious that the algorithm is in the background, and that when they click on something, the algorithm serves them. So they're very careful about the choices they make. If they know they definitely don't want to watch a lot of a particular kind of content, they actively curate their algorithm. And this is protecting them against some of the more difficult, I guess, aspect, or, more harmful content, the content that could negatively impact their well-being. So there's an interesting capability, a protective capability in their interactions with the algorithm. But they are actively trying to shape the algorithm so that they can receive the content that they want. And what's also interesting about this is that it gives them a sense of agency. I think one of the big questions for all of us with algorithms is, what is the relationship between the human and the technological? Who has more agency in that relationship? Does the algorithm have more agency? Does the human have more agency? And there are questions about control and agency wound up in our relationships with the algorithm. But this is what's interesting, is that children say they actually like it reasonably when the algorithm gives them content they don't want, because this gives them the feeling of choosing what they want to see, so a sense of agency. But then at other times too, they get irritated with the algorithm when it gives them too much of the same kind of thing, because they begin to lose this sense of agency. So there's an interesting dynamic there between control and submission, if you like, in the interaction with the algorithm. The key way that children and young people are interfacing with algorithms is by scrolling. And in mainstream culture, we often say that scrolling is about time wasting. It's meaningless. We call it doom scrolling, for example. But actually, when we asked teens and tweens about their scrolling practices, they showed us that actually there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. They do say that scrolling is kind of something you just have to do if you want to engage with content platforms. It's kind of a condition of engagement, and so they're kind of resigned to the fact that they're going to have to scroll. But some children and young people talk about scrolling as a bit of a pleasurable way of passing time. They enjoy browsing through content, and yes, they can lose a lot of time doing it, but they enjoy it. Scrolling is also their key protective mechanism when they're moving through large volumes of content. When they see something that is inappropriate or something they don't want to see, their strategy for protecting themselves is simply to scroll by. So it's a defense mechanism. And as I've just said, scrolling is also wound up with these ideas of choice and agency. So it's how they make deliberate choices about what they consume, and it's the way that they teach the algorithm. And in that idea of teaching the algorithm, there is also a sense of agency. But of course, it's not all positive. And I think we have a lot of things to think about. And this is an image actually from the Washington Post today of AI-generated fake photos that are being circulated in big image repositories that are accessed by news agencies as well as many others. So these kinds of images have begun to find their way into our so-called factual reporting of news and information, blurring the line between what we know is real and what is computer generated. And I think this has really, really big implications. Implications that are not very well, that we need to be concerned about. I think so. And for children, this kind of thing raises two immediate concerns that we can quickly think about. The first is that this blurring between truth and fiction is something against which children have very few defences. They don't know, they often don't have the cultural capital, they haven't developed the skills to be able to distinguish these things. And this is becoming more and more difficult, such that I don't think even the best literacy education can defend a child. I don't think an adult can distinguish between these kinds of images and so-called pictures of reality. So it's not something that we can solve by literacy education. This doesn't mean we should stop educating our children about media literacy. Indeed, we should step up those efforts, but it is not going to solve the challenge. And the second thing here is that these are obviously, there are a surprising number of AI-generated fake photos of children circulating, and this has all kinds of nefarious consequences. So there are very big concerns about the ways that child sexual exploitation might be transforming. There is a big debate about whether or not if people who consume child sexual exploitation content are only consuming images of children that are fake, is this still a crime? I would argue that yes, it is, and we need to be really concerned about it because these practices of sharing AI-generated fake photos are still nonetheless legitimizing and validating arguably very unhealthy attitudes towards children. So we need some solutions. Like I say, the solutions, a lot of people have immediately begun to call for increased media literacy education, and this is absolutely important, but it won't solve the problem. I really do think we need to call for regulation, and it needs to be swift. We need to work at an international level to think about what kinds of standards are appropriate, and to then implement that legislation as quickly as we can. Because obviously these practices are rapidly proliferating. So there are lots of things for us to think about. But I think one of the other things that we also should think about is how we might embrace this technology for good, right? So how we might use generative AI to fight against some of the challenging consequences that AI is producing for our societies. And this is an open question and something that I hope you might have the chance to talk about further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate it. Anybody with a question to Amanda? Okay, we'll use my phone to ask questions.
Come in.
So Amanda, I'm curious to know because I'm also green in this area. Is going to be is algorithm the same as footprint? And then the other question is what I've seen the solutions that are there, literacy, the embracing part of it, and regulations. But what can we, as simple as parents in this room, what can we do to protect our children? Because you've said it's a form of to be used as a form of sexual abuse. So what can we do as parents, as people who are in this child protection space?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for those two questions. So isn't... Oh, sorry.
We're asking questions, and then you respond to all of them together because we have a problem in connection in this room.
Okay, wonderful. I'll just grab my pen and paper. I'm listening.
Okay.
Okay, hi Amanda. So my question is on encryption and also the average time people are using to scroll. So generally it is estimated that people are using almost half of their days or 1.5 hours normally, averagely, to scroll throughout using social media platforms. And also we can see that the social media companies are trying to go in a future-based, which their future is to encrypt their social media platform. So if they encrypt, it will mean that it will be a bit difficult for people to even get the online sexual abusers. So we have also the dark web, which is also emanating and also being more developed. People like the US don't have the capacity even to arrest some of them. So how should we go about embracing such, and also how do we go about arresting such people, and also the solutions that we have as of now?
Thank you.
Good morning, or is it good evening? Yes, I'm a complete novice in this area, so do forgive me. My question is, as of now, you mentioned about the regularity bodies. In the African continent, per se, do you know who governs, or do we go by the EU AI Act, which was recently executed? So who are we looking for? What bodies and regulations are we looking at in Africa? Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? We have a very interesting mic here. Anyone else? Okay, so that she can grab all the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda, for this very informative presentation. When we're talking about one of the responses being literacy, is there any available curricula at the moment that could just help, first of all, as parents, to just help our children and maybe widely out in the community?
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. My question is specific to, are there country-specific regulations that we have currently that are regulating use of AIs, particularly with children, to ensure that they are more safeguarded, that we can borrow from? Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Do you mind just repeating that one more time?
Oh, fine. Thank you. My question is, are there specific regulations or laws in other countries that are being used by maybe governments to ensure that children are safeguarded, particularly with respect to AI?
Okay, is that all of the questions for now? Okay, thank you. Great questions, and I think all of these questions have definitely been on my mind and the minds of others. In fact, I'm calling to you from Brussels, where yesterday the European Union held a meeting precisely about child safeguarding, and these questions have also come up very strongly there. So let me share what I know with you, but I do know too that I would. There are some things that I would like to send you after this session, if that's helpful. So the first question around, is the algorithm the same as a footprint? I think you can argue yes, and I think this is a really clever way to think about algorithms, because of course algorithms are shaping the content that we see, and we do leave traces in the ways that we shape our algorithms that say things about who we are and what we like and where we are and when we do things and these kinds of information. So yes, I think you can think about an algorithm as a kind of footprint, and indeed this might be a really nice way to start to talk to children about what algorithms are. I think we want to be careful though. When we talk about algorithms, they're obviously very flexible. They can shift and change over time. And so they're not exactly the same as a footprint, in the sense that it would be very hard for at least at this point in history, it would be very hard for any individual to access your algorithmic footprint and to use it against you. So it's a little bit different to the kind of digital footprint where we would see children putting photos that stay online for very long periods of time and so on. But yes, I think there are some parallels between the algorithm and the footprint. And I think one other trend that is kind of being talked about here is certainly that what ways are commercial enterprises going to begin to think about how to monetize and make money out of these algorithms? And one I guess thought that's being talked about is that down the track you might be able to purchase a particular kind of algorithm, a particular kind of personality that then follows you around your digital experiences. This is not a reality yet, but certainly something that is being talked about. This is obviously difficult for people who don't want to pay or can't pay for a personalized algorithm. But it is possibly one way in which we can be sure that algorithms don't ever get too personal, that they remain a little bit generic, right? Kind of personality types that you buy, as opposed to your specific set of algorithms that follow you around. Anyway, those are some things to think about there. Strategies for parents. This is a really great one. And I think the fact that you're even asking this question says that you're probably doing the right sorts of things. I think the number one thing that we can do to help our children navigate this world is to have ongoing, routine conversations with them about how the digital world works. So I think it's really important that children understand the mechanics of what sits behind their digital media practices. This doesn't mean that parents have to be experts, but they just have to have a sense of vaguely how things work, and then to have ongoing conversations with their children. And if you need to know more, you can search together for answers to the questions that you have. So I think talking about algorithms is really important. I think it's very important that we don't frighten our children, but that we are very pragmatic about the ways that we teach them online safety, and that we remember that really keeping safe online is about the values you have as people, right? It's about the ways that you interact with others. Of course, we should be teaching them to use things like privacy settings. We should be teaching them how to block things. But most importantly, we should be having conversations with our children that are open and honest, and which create space for children to come to you if they are find themselves in difficulties. I think one of the things that children around the world have repeatedly told me is that they need to feel like their parents trust them to do the right thing. You know, we obviously need to equip them, but they also need trust as well as online safety skills, right? They need to know that that you think that they're going to do the right thing online, and that if something comes wrong, that means they can come to you. We need to stop telling them to do things that we know they do, right? Like interacting with strangers. Children do interact with strangers when they go online. It's the same as if you walk from your home to school, you come across strangers in the world. And when we tell children not to interact with strangers, we're telling them that we don't understand what goes on in their worlds, and this means they don't trust us, that they can come to us when they have a problem, especially if they've done something where we've told them not to do. So I think being very real about what happens online and emphasizing that they need to take precautions, they need to be thinking about their safety, not just their own safety, but the safety of those others around them. And then really having those routine conversations about what's going on and how it works and why, those are the best things that we can do as parents. And I think, remember that you are the most important person in your child's life, at least until the age of 18, at least. Parents are the most important figure. So role model for them good behaviours or good practices. Be the kind of digital citizen that you want your child to be. Those would be some recommendations for you. Now, number 3 was a question around scrolling and the time that we spend scrolling, and how can we... Oh, I've actually forgotten that question. I might come back to that one at the end. There was a question about who governs algorithms in Africa. My guess is that that there isn't anyone who is now, has now got legislation in place around governing algorithms. It is an international conversation that has just been happening in the last couple of months, really, about how to regulate generative AI. Oh, I mean, AI, of course, has been around for a long time. So there will be some regulation that governs that. I'm not entirely sure who is in charge of that in your particular setting. That might be a question that's better answered by some of the other experts in the room. But I do think that this is a conversation that people in your part of the world really need to be contributing to, because I think it is very true that regulation that is made, excuse me, regulation that's made in one part of the world can have very significant impacts on other parts of the world. So the EU is indeed looking at new regulation to govern AI. It's said in the conversations that are being had that this regulation is really not strong enough, and that there still needs to be more debate. So that regulation is still a little way away. But because that regulation is likely to have impacts on your part of the world, but also on my part of the world and many other parts of the world, I think it's really important that we're having those conversations. So my suggestion there to you would be to reach out to your decision makers, to bring this to their attention, and to demand that they take some action to make sure that the right sorts of regulation are in place for people in Africa. Is there available curricula about generative AI? Yes, there is. Well, about AI in general, there is a range of there's a range of different resources available currently. And I would be happy to share these with Jennifer so that she can pass them on to you if they would be helpful. One good reputable entity that is producing some good material around these things is the E-Safety Commission in Australia. That's our Australian regulator. They're a very active regulator. They're doing a lot of work on the international front, and they have a bunch of resources. And I know for a fact that they're very interested in talking to other people in other parts of the world who might like to pick these resources up, adapt them for their contexts, and use them. So I can compile a little list there for you and send that to Jennifer. And the regulations around child safeguarding, yes, there is a lot going on currently. In fact, in Europe, the other big thing that's happening here, which I think will also have consequences for other parts of the world, including where I live and where you live, is the Digital Services Act. This is a very large piece of quite complex legislation that's been in development for around 18 months or so, I believe, and it will strengthen significantly obligations on very large platforms and search engines to put child safeguarding first. So I think there is a lot happening internationally, and again, I can follow up with a short list of things that you might like to follow up there. But was the question around scrolling about how to manage how much time we spend? Is that right? Jennifer, do you mind just clarifying?
Let him ask the questions again.
Thank you. And sorry, I just didn't take adequate notes. Still haven't had
hi,
my
Jennifer.
coffee.
The question was about, sorry. Hi, Amanda. So the question was about scrolling. So we are talking about children aged between 8 to 18 years, spending almost half a day scrolling through social media platforms. And social media platforms in themselves are talking about going to encrypt. The future is encryption for protecting privacy. And even there's Meta founder said that it will be also an avenue for bad people to do bad things. So meaning that now parents even using VPNs won't be able to regulate what their children are talking about. So is there a way that you can be able to embrace or have a solution to what you don't know?
Yes, the short answer is no solution here is perfect. This is an ongoing debate internationally about the tension between privacy and encryption and the need to safeguard children. You're right to put your finger on this. It's a key issue. I do think we shouldn't panic about it. There's a lot of debate. The Digital Services Act will go some way to putting some protections in place there, and those are, so I think we should watch those and encourage our decision makers to also watch these things. I think the time question around scrolling is a really critical one. Scrolling can be a positive practice up to a point. We do need to talk with our children about limits to the ways that we engage with content. We do need to encourage children to notice how they feel when they've been scrolling for longer periods of time than shorter periods of time, and to help them identify how to better regulate their interactions. And you know, I think so I think that if time spent scrolling is part of your concern there, I do think we need to be really firm with our children about paying attention to what makes them feel good and what doesn't make them feel good, and so on. But on the encryption question, yes, I think we do need to be concerned about this. Many people are saying that we don't need to trade children's privacy or data, data in order to keep them safe. So that's a quite long and complex debate. And again, if you're interested, I can perhaps send you a few things to read there. But there are also people looking at technical solutions which would enable us to work out who's the child and how to best protect them. And these kinds of technologies might actually help us to circumvent the encryption debate. So yeah, stay tuned. I think there's a lot happening in that space, and it's certainly a key debate.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was, I hope you've learned something, okay? I hope you've learned something. We had planned technology pitch letters down there. So we had planned to do a few activities, but I've been told we are running out of time. So I'm going to respond to your question about who is regulating Africa. Right now we have the EU is the big one, because most platforms are regulated by either the GDPR or the EU Act. There's a data act there, okay, or COSA, the COPA, okay, that's the American regulation, because most of them are based in the US. So, but in Africa, I know there's efforts that are coming up right now. We have the Malabo Protocol. If you're not from Kenya, please tell your Kenyan government or your non-Kenyan government to go and sign up to Malabo. It's a long name, but we call it Malabo Protocol. It's on. So it has a regulation that is covers Africa-wide, so we can be able to regulate what we do in Africa. But there's efforts right now. The AU is coming up with a child online policy, so it goes beyond protection and safety. So they're coming up with one. We should be ready by end of next year. Right now, the African Children's Committee has come up with a general comment number 4 that talks online, but it only regulates online sexual exploitation, not everything. In Kenya, we have the Data Protection Act, we have the Cybercrime Act, we have the Children's Act, we have a new one that has just come out. So there are quite a number, there are about 5 of them that protect children online. So I'm going to share this. I'm going to share the slides. If you can be able to sign up there's a form link. You can sign up. You're going to share materials. So this is the beginning of our conversation that we're going to have for the next 3 weeks. Today is the first one, just what Amanda has done. Just you're going to have voices of children, okay, on AI, and then on 8th of including Dr. Najat, we also have Dr. Sonia, we have Dr. Theo. They're going to come again, and we're going to discuss about AI and childhood. And why we are not, we initially wanted to focus on Africa, but we realized, Amanda and myself were in a meeting, we realized this conversation is not happening anywhere. Okay, so we thought just do Africa, and then it's not happening. And then I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Sonia, Dr. Sonia, and it's not happening anywhere. Let's just make it broad, and then people can start picking up from their regional perspective. Okay, so I want to say thank you so much for coming and being patient. And I'm so sorry because of the tech pitch, and thank you for your hope you've learned something. Thank you so much. Let us appreciate those who have been to my
Thanks,
session.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Amanda. Bye, Amanda. Yeah, we applause, the children's time, right? So we'll do. Wow. So let's go.
Wow. Was it that wow? Yes, it is wow. And we know that matters to do with the digital space. Sometimes when we are too overwhelmed, we back out. We just shut everything and say, now we don't understand, so let's just leave. But as we have been told, these things are here with us. They are not leaving. So we better just get equipped and not get afraid, and then we can be able to engage with our children in a more informed way, so that we don't tell them, no, that thing is there. No. At least we can engage, because for them, like we say, they have been born in this age. So for them, this is their world. So for us who are digital migrants, we are the ones who are having the challenges. So let's get equipped, let's get informed, let's go to all these sites that they're going to share with us, and learn what we need to learn, so that we are better equipped to help our children and support them and protect them, right? So thank you so much. I think you'll be sharing that. Anybody who has not gotten or they need extras, if they have, we can just receive from them.
So guys, I know most of you, all of you, have gotten the speaker. I say by human, for human, and be human. Most of us are scared of AI service take over us, but it is by human, it is for human. We're supposed to use AI, co-create with AI, and it doesn't take away our humanity. So it's just a matter of us, don't be scared of anything, use it as a human being and co-create with it. So on our website, www.mtotonews.com, there's a webinar section. That is where the form is going to be. You're going to register online, and we're going to send you to see all the information about the webinars that are coming, and also there's a registration form that is coming for this session. Please don't leave before you sign. Thank you so much.
And also, thank you. I'm going to have a session on parenting after this, 11 o'clock. I think I go 7 or 6. Please come, and you're going to go down more onto this. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Enjoy your children. What about parents?
Yes, that's the form. You can register for the webinar.
Yeah, then see you back in the breakout rooms at 11.